Hello, this is Christina Yonkman, and I'm going to share my case study about the teacher who reacts negatively to personnel evaluation. So to summarize the case and share a few of the facts, I'm the principal, Ms. Yonkman. I'm working on completing teacher evaluations. I have been observing Mrs. Stevens, a teacher who is up for tenure this year, and I have visited her several times before writing her evaluation. She is very intelligent and has an excellent background in her subject matter. However, her class seems disinterested and shows little respect. Even though they're not defiant to her, she just has little influence on them. Her classroom seems noisy and has lots of movement at times, but when I am in the classroom, they do settle down. I held a post-visitation conference where she became very defensive, so I decided to make one final classroom visit, but I ended up leaving without comment. Due to the way that evaluation went or that visit went. I had a post-evaluation conference with Mrs. Stevens, and I did recommend that her contract not be renewed. At that time, Mrs. Stevens felt it was not fair because her evaluation was not fair, and she voiced her concern that she did not have any supervision, and she walked out of my office. Okay, well, throughout this presentation, you will see some embedded white terms, and those are the terms that are related to our standard. So we're going to talk about what did not happen. We did not talk about professional learning and know exactly what all happened with professional learning. We did not see any signs of collaboration happening. We did not see professional capacity and relationships being built. We did not see any types of supervision, the systems of supervision as far as like starting the walkthroughs early, providing data, providing positive and constructive feedback. Section 2, we are going to talk about the legal or ethical issues. As mentioned, building professional capacity within the administration and building is important, and it is important that it starts with me as the principal. It's also important to find out what kind of building culture is present regarding both the staff and the students. I felt like the district evaluation form was very vague and did not really leave room for explanation. No person was physically harmed. However, ethically and professionally, I don't feel like I provided a professional learning and support for Mrs. Stevens and her students. If we had to label any action as harming, the closest would be against Mrs. Stevens due to her feeling that her evaluation was not fair. A breach of contract could have taken place depending on what the district policy is for non-renewal. For example, do they require a plan of assistance before non-renewal? And we also need to consider the district and state policy. It was probably compromised and not followed, and Mrs. Stevens could fight her dismissal using legal ramifications. I don't believe any discrimination or harassment took place. However, I do feel like Mrs. Stevens, some of her comments were not very professional. Okay, section 3, we're going to talk about exactly what has happened in one sentence. So I feel like this is Mrs. Stevens, a classroom teacher up for tenure, does not feel she has been treated fairly or received proper supervision after her principal, Mrs. Yonkman, visited her classroom several times, held one post-visitation conference, and informed her she was recommending to the superintendent that her contract not be renewed, or her contract be non-renewed. Next, we're going to move on to section 4, and we're going to look at the missing facts, and we're going to look at the people, places, and programs. These are just things that we do not know as far as the case study. So as far as people, we don't know anything about Mrs. Stevens' background, what she teaches, how long she's been teaching, where all she's taught at. We don't know anything about her coworkers. We don't know anything about building coaches. We don't know anything about the student demographics or what type of students she's teaching. And we don't know anything about my principal teaching and leadership experience. As far as places, we don't know the name or location of the school. We don't know anything about Mrs. Stevens' classroom design. We don't know anything about the community support or anything about nearby schools or professional learning opportunities. As far as programs, like I said, we don't know what subject has been taught. We don't know anything about the grade level. We don't have any details on the negotiated agreement or the board policies. We don't know anything about what type of classroom resources or a budget is available. We don't know any type of professional learning that has happened, and we don't know anything about the building capacity or the building culture. Okay, so section 5 is just basically reviewing and prioritizing the information based on everybody involved. And so I just want to share that we are going to include, when we talk about our plan, we're going to include staff, and that includes the staff that is being evaluated. We're going to look at school improvement and what can be done as far as resources for that. We're going to look at the administration and their professional capacity. We are going to look at students and what all type of demographics we have with them. We are going to consider our Board of Education policies and the state law. We are going to look at the supervision policy and what type of evaluation tools are available. And we are going to consider what's available in the community as far as resources. So my plan basically has 5 steps, and it goes along with our standard. So the first part of the step is promoting the success and well-being of students and staff. And we're going to talk in detail about how all of this is going to happen. We're going to look at step number 2 as far as recruiting, selecting, and hiring staff. We're going to look at step 3, engaging staff in collaborative professional culture. And it is my job to make sure I require enhanced technology, address building needs, help solve problems, and offer resources. Step 4, we're going to collaboratively engage student in the professional learning. So I'm going to provide some resources through PLCs and mentoring programs and peer observations. And step 5, we're going to look at the implementation of our supervision, and we're going to talk about communication and walkthroughs and making sure that we provide feedback and use the district evaluation tool. So when we are looking at the plan, some pros and cons. There are more pros than there are cons. So as far as coming up with a good plan for evaluations, it can help improve staff morale, which creates happy staff. It helps build relationships, which helps retain staff. It improves student and staff success. It promotes lifelong learning. It allows students and staff to take risks. It allows collaboration and provides learning. It helps us develop our professional capacity and a building culture. It allows cultural responsiveness. It promotes school improvement. It creates additional leaders within the building. It improves our building digital literacy. It increases our community involvement, and it helps us follow district and state policies. The cons, it can be time consuming. In a small school, principals may be summoned for other duties, which takes away from their evaluation time. It can be costly depending on the type of resources we are looking at offering. There can be a difference of opinion. Student demographics can be a con as far as possibly like an alternative setting or at-risk students. One of the cons can be the policies and laws in states can change, and which can create legal liability. It can disrupt classroom function. It can create uncomfortable conversations among staff, which can affect the building morale. And of course, there's always the risk of it not being successful. Okay, section 8, I have listed in very detail my plan. And so I'm just going to run through these. First part of my plan is creating a school vision by involving the staff and students in that. I want to make sure I set high expectations and professionalism in my building. I'm going to create a social committee to help build our relationships. I'm going to get to know both my students and my teachers. I'm going to be involved in the active hiring. I'm going to be active in the hiring process. I'm going to attend those hiring fairs as possible and research those candidates and make sure I hire a good fit for my building. I am going to advocate for enhanced technology for both students and staff. And I'm going to use my building coaches to provide data to help support staff and students. I'm going to communicate with staff and students about what they feel like they need. And I'm going to be active in problem solving when a problem arises. I'm going to provide those resources that staff say that they need. And I'm going to plan and participate myself along with the staff in professional learning. I'm going to help with the decision making. I'm going to schedule our weekly PLC time so that we have collaboration with teachers. I'm going to provide the instructional coach. I'm going to establish a mentoring program for new teachers and veteran teachers as needed. I'm going to encourage and schedule collaboration walks and organize peer observations. I'm going to offer digital learning for both students and staff. I'm going to schedule a regular building leadership team, which includes community resources. I'm going to encourage staff to use culturally relevant teaching to learn more about their students and where they come from. Very important step is I'm going to communicate regularly, whether that's in person or through email or whatever type of communication is necessary. I'm going to start my walkthroughs early in the year and do them often and provide routine feedback throughout the year. I'm going to schedule time to discuss that feedback so teachers are aware of what is expected. I'm going to offer solutions and suggestions. I'm going to try to use the sandwich technique when doing this and providing constructive feedback. I'm going to use iMessages and let them know what I liked. And part of that constructive feedback is, what behavior happened or didn't happen, what is the outcome and how could it impact others, and what actions need to happen to improve. I'm going to make sure I prepare comments and allow questions from the teachers. I'm going to use our district approved evaluation tool. If necessary, I'm going to develop a plan of improvement. I'm going to continually follow up with teachers throughout the year and offer regular support throughout the year. I'm going to increase my classroom walkthroughs, whether they are announced or just some spur of the moment where I'm wanting to build some relationships with student and staff. And I'm going to make sure I follow the district policy along with the state policy and laws. Okay, section 9, we're going to talk about the implementation of the plan. I just went over every single step and the details of it. So the first part of implementing is starting with step 1. And if you remember, that was creating a school vision. I'm going to do this implementation by communicating with staff, students, all of our district stakeholders, and the community what all the plan involves. And I'm going to look at what could possibly happen. Sometimes things don't go as planned. So we could have conflict with staff. We could have staff either leave or we have new staff coming. We can have a change of student demographics. We might have some budget restrictions depending on the resources we're looking at. We could have a change in our human resource area as far as recruiting and hiring. We can have district or state policy or law changes like we've seen in Kansas this year with providing student, where this year they changed the law where we have to get parent permission to provide any type of survey to students. We could have lack of subs and staff shortage, which affects me in my time being in the classroom because I may have to be helping sub. And there's always the chance that staff could disagree with their evaluation. So if some of these things happen and I need to look at a plan B, I can reach out to our personnel department and the school's attorney if needed. That would be a worst case scenario. I could consider other type of things to help supplement my budget like fundraisers or grants. I could involve our staff in the recruiting process as an incentive. And our school does that. They have a cash incentive at the beginning of the year if the school hires somebody that you recommended. I'm going to use parents and community members as much as allowed. We can learn a lot by knowing how our teachers react with parents in and out of school, and also looking at their social media. I'm going to provide training for district about the state and policy and law changes as they happen. Okay, so we're going to end here with section 10, my concluding statements. And the standard correlation, this case study has helped me understand PL07 by allowing me to research about building professional capacity. And we know that leadership capacity helps with the performance of both the students and the staff and promotes a safe learning environment. This also helps create a positive building culture. This will ensure that my staff and students are successful and promote school improvement. In addition, I learned a great deal about the hiring process and how to retain quality teachers by providing effective supervision and evaluations. And in the end, this is going to help with the success and well-being of my staff and students. The relevancy, this case study has helped me understand the evaluation process for all teachers, both poor and high quality, because we know it's important to offer evaluations for both types of teachers. We know that evaluations are more than just test scores, meeting goals, attending professional learning, or checking off a rubric. It starts with building relationships and getting to know staff in and out of school. Doing this case study has made me think about our district policy and how the state law regarding evaluation and tenure has even changed since I started teaching. My current leader works really hard at building relationships with both staff and students, and it has affected our building culture very positively. And in the end, this is going to help with the well-being of our students and staff. And then last, the reflection piece. As a building leader, I will work hard to develop relationships, provide support to my staff so that when it's time for evaluations, they feel like it's part of the normal day. I will work hard to develop the professional capacity in myself and in my building. And this will include recruiting and hiring quality staff that are a good fit for my building. These two things will help promote the well-being of my staff and students and help with our school improvement. And then last here, you see our references, including my board negotiated agreement. Thank you very much for your time.